Now, Professor Blumen is one of the most distinguished scientists in the area of gifted education of South America. The relation between her university and the Radboud University is strong, and many colleagues of Sheyla did their PhD research here. And in January, Jitske, there, a student from our university will go to Lima for research under the supervision of Professor Blumen.
Yeah. We're making all of you come in because you follow me here, so it's good.
Today, Sheyla Blumen will talk about creativity, technology, and talent development towards excellence in education.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much to all of you that are so loyal to the presentation. We have to make some creative ways to bring in all of you to Peru, either next year that we have a conference, a semi-conference, the semi-conference, or 2015 that we have the big Inter-American Conference of Psychology there. So we have to manage that. Last time I was here, I was defending my doctoral dissertation. So I didn't know why when I entered this room I feel like frightened. And it was because I recognized these people over here and also this thing over here where the committee was sitting and somebody else was here as well. So well, at that time it was in 4th of July of 2000, Liane Hogeven and Tessa Kibun where my parents and Professor Franz Munks and Dr. Willy Peters were sitting in the committee. So now we have a complete different situation where I can join and can share with you, and I really am very honored to be here as invited speaker to share with you what we have been doing in Peru along these 13 years. Okay? As you know, fostering talented development in a in an ethnic, linguistic, diverse, multicultural country is a big challenge, okay? Peru is here in South America and has more than 64 vernacular languages spoken in the Amazon area, which is in this region over here, that's the Amazon jungle, and 2 languages, different languages, Aymara and Quechua, spoken in the Andean area. Andean is not just Machu Picchu, okay, but the Andes run from the north to the south of Peru. This whole green thing is the, equivalent to Andean area. And the coastal area, which is here, mostly desertic and with beautiful beaches. So Lima is in the coastal area, and if you can imagine, it's not just the geographic differences, but the way of living as well. This is a picture of Lima City, coastal area, where archaeological sites are combined with modern buildings, you know, the business area of San Isidro, beautiful weather, 13 centigrade degrees is our worst winter time, okay? It's more or less the equivalent of summertime here, I know. This is the most maybe well-known picture of the Andean area where Machu Picchu is. And we have the flamingos in the Amazon area as well. So how does education take place there? Here, this is a school for highly able students close to Lima City. It's especially creative for highly able students in science and technology. This is a public school run by the Ministry of Education. This is a rural school in the Andes in which students go with the parents wearing their own costume and native costumes. But they still have this, do you recognize? These laptops from MIT. Okay, it reaches 4,000 meters above the sea level. Literally, okay? This was at the top of not a hill, a mountain. And these are the children attending the Amazon schools, Amazon villages schools. So it's kind of different, right? Attending either a coastal area school, Andean, or jungle, right? So, and this situation, plus the fact that education in Peru belongs to a centralized system in which Lima runs everything since 1837. It's a kind of complex situation. The positive thing is that we have compulsory education since kindergarten to 11th grade, where we finish high school since 1992. And following BTI information of 2012, we have reached a high level of educational coverage and gender equity, as well as it remains a disparity between educational quality and teacher training. So you can have either IBO schools, very high demanding and of excellent academic level, and also you can have rural schools at the top of the mountains. Okay, so it's really difficult to cope with everything, so you have to choose where to start. And we have chosen to start in the coastal area first, because there are many variables that we cannot handle in the Amazon and jungle area, although we are starting also to reach some schools there. In 1983, there were rules for special education given, stating the need to attend the cognitive and emotional needs of gifted children in Peru. Okay? Some people say this was more political issue, others say no, it is a need still, the rules are there. And Peru became the first country in South America to launch norms, particularly for gifted education. So this supports advocacy towards the needs of the gifted and talented children, identification service and talented development programs, as well as promotes research in order to have some theoretical foundations for teacher training in Peru as well. So, although in 1972 the German government support enrichment programs mainly related to arts and music, drama, visual arts, in 1988, the National Council for Science and Technology launched a nationwide detection program mainly based on IQ. The standards were so high that just 3 children out of 3,000 were identified. But you know how politics are. They cannot say that failed. But because you have to be either the son of Superman or the daughter of Wonder Woman to become, identified, right? So they still launch a program for giving enrichment support to the children identify, and they made a little bit, more children to fit the criteria. So instead of being 3, they became 300, okay, suddenly. So in 1989, enrichment programs were also supported by the Ministry of Education, and in 1998, there was a turn into the Ministry of Education towards an inclusive-oriented system, okay? And this man arrived to Peru, you know him, I'm sure, around the 1970s, not specifically for working on gifted education, but to support the Ministry of Education through the Van Leer project, mainly in reading and improving the quality of education in the country. But thanks to that, a cooperation with my university started by the end of the 70s, beginning of the 80s, and we managed to finally ended up here. I defended my thesis, dissertation, not thesis as you know here, but the license degree there. And suddenly I had the opportunity to come to Nijmegen in 1991 for the European workshops, and then the cooperation started. And we launched this book as a manual for teachers and parents as well. And we could also run the ECHA diploma in Peru with the support of the Ministry of Education. And this was the first scientific effort to train school teachers under the supervision of the European Council for High Ability, with the Center for the Study of Giftedness from this university and the Ministry of Education. In Peru, we have this manual, which is online, that until today supports the work of many teachers that want to work on gifted education. Finally, in 2000, the dissertation was approved, and we have we could handle also a lot of information in relation to training teachers, the use of standardized instruments, the multidimensionality of the talented concept, assessment elements, school placement criterion, as well as the issue that chronological age was and now still is an interferent in gifted screening processes. And this issue, well, and along this day, we have not talked about chronological age, but that is an issue in Latin America. Okay, they look at chronological age like, I don't know, something very venerable that has to be remained. And it's very difficult to change minds because of what Michelangelo was talking this morning about people that do not really believe that gifted children deserve opportunities to be enriched or accelerated. Now, after 2000, we can have more power to talk to policymakers as well as to develop a legal framework for services to gifted and talented children, and also the interdisciplinary research group on creativity, technology, and talent was developed. So there we could start it under the university umbrella, some studies, scientific studies, about the beliefs on gifted children in Peru. And indeed, we found some differences between the Western paradigm and the Andean cosmovision, as well as the Amazon tribes cosmovision, in which divinity, animism, naturalism were important factors in the beliefs they still remain, okay? And this is published in our Journal of Psychology as well. In 2007, we did a study on the social representations of the highly able by a group of school teachers at teacher level, and you see that some pathologic issues as well as physical characteristic and creativity factors were involved in how teachers, school teachers, and also teachers in college studies represent the highly able at that time. We can also have an international seminar as well as we launch a conference on creativity, intelligence, and talent under the World Council. Yes, the how wide is your forefront? There were some issues related to physical characteristics, and as Franz Mons told me, those were things that here in Europe were happening around the 17th century or 18th century. I know. So that's why we need you all there, you see? You know why I want to bring you to Peru now. We launched the Ficamundit conference, that's the Ibero-American generation of the World Council in 2008, and that gave us also a platform in order to have more influence with the Ministry of Education to state the importance of provisions, giving provisions for the highly able. Until now, the most difficult issues have to do with the relevance of context for talent development, as I show you, in an ethnic, linguistic, diverse, and multicultural country. We need a theoretical framework to identify the gifted in a context shaped by multiculturalism and poverty, because many times I'm in Europe and I hear people talk about multiculturality. In Peru, ethnic, linguistic diversity is strongly related to poverty as well. And that means if you don't belong to the majority, you don't deserve a good quality of education. Okay, so education is also related to socioeconomic status, because schools that belong to the ministry, I mean the public schools there, have no good quality of education. There is a big disparity in that. Also, the native population and girls are underrepresented. Nutrition and schooling are significant variables. Resilience-associated factors must be considered in socially excluded and marginalized communities. And this is mainly due to the work we have been doing with the Math Olympiads. I don't know how familiar you are with the IMO, IMO, International Math Olympiads, but Peru used to be in the 97th position in the world, and suddenly in 2006 in Madrid, they raised up to the 17th position. And it was interesting because the people from Johns Hopkins, Linda, were asking me, what are they eating? What are you giving them? And I was telling them, just joking, quinoa and kiwicha, you know, the Andean cereals. Yeah, okay, but the real reason was related to motivation, what Moitska was talking about before, because we changed the way the children were trained. I'm not a mathematician, so I was not involved in the math training, but I was involved in the counseling, supporting this group of children coming from very poor conditions, many of them going to a sort of boarding school to be trained, and they were trained by former participants, former math Olympiads. So it was not the same to have a math teacher training them than having a peer, an older peer, training them and telling them, listen, when you're going to sit down, you're going to be so nervous that you cannot write down your name. But you have to think that if you don't write your name, you cannot take the exam. So you write your name, okay? But they were telling them, like, okay, it's normal to feel nervous. It's normal to feel like that, okay? And we develop a motivation program with them in order to support also their emotional needs. And this is something that they're not doing right now, that officially we have what they call Beca 18, which is students finishing high school, they have the possibility to are awarded by grants to study continuing college studies, either in Peru or abroad. But the problem is that there is one psychology who is just licensed a year ago from my university, okay, for the 1,500 teenagers who awarded the Beca 18, this award. So, you know, it's quite impossible to deal with all that. So now they have realized that, oh, maybe, and this psychology is a community psychology, social psychology, has nothing to do with gifted education. So now they have realized that, oh, maybe we have to change our mind and put more psychologists or counselors to support these children. Yeah, maybe. But, you know, sometimes when politics mix with programs, sometimes the results are not so positive. Also, the definitions of giftedness and talent needs has to be culturally relevant, at least in Peru as well as in Brazil or in Bolivia, countries that have also this diversity. And the problem, particularly in Peru, is that children could be called gifted at very different levels of achievement, depending on school standards. It's not the same, again, to be in the British school or a French school or German school in Lima or Italian, etc., that have international baccalaureate programs in which they have to take the international exams, right, than being in other kind of schools just run by the Ministry of Education. So it's not the same to be gifted in Cusco or Arequipa cities inside Peru than in certain schools that do have enrichment and even acceleration programs. In terms of the most important contributions to gifted education, we have found the importance of nutrition. Well, we have 40% of malnutrition. So in a country with 40% of malnutrition, nutrition is an issue, okay? So that's why the importance of nutrition in school achievement, the relevance of prior schooling, especially in poor and disadvantaged areas, to study the relationship between resilience and giftedness, and talent to be considered as the development of expertise depending on environmental stimulation, which is a need in Peru. We have done some studies in which we also, the results show that usually our talent children excel on math, verbal communication, and artistic development, but they always show low level on science and technology, opportunities to develop in these areas are not high. That's why I kept on telling Hydrum, we have to do something, right, in terms of not just the girls, but everybody, right? And indigenous girls exhibit limited representation as well. Also, we know that schooling is better than chronological age. Acculturation level has to be considered, linguistic preference, and the norms adapted to the group study and not to the country as a cluster. I will go over this a little bit. We have also has information to support the 2 stages in the detection and identification process. Medical and psychological diagnosis was much better than parents or non-trained teachers and psychological diagnosis. This is a study done with the Math Olympiads in Peru, in which more or less the characteristics we found under personality agree with international literature. So after this, we have from the studies done before or along the 2000, a combination of measures that we need on the identification process. We have a standardized assessment instrument. We have an alert about the social representation. We have also to be aware about the limited representation of girls in science and technology and the fundamental role of teacher training. After these conclusions, we went to lobby with governmental officers to improve the provisions available for gifted and talented children in order to strengthen the legal framework for launching a residential academy of arts and sciences in Lima. This was launched in 2010, okay? And there were 2 issues important that I have to say. One was the Templeton International Fellowship, in which gave us opportunity to meet Nicholas Colangelo and the people from the Blumen Center in Iowa. And then I got to know about the residential academy that they have in Illinois. So in 2000, after that, I could go to that academy. And so there was a model to launch a residential academy of arts and sciences in Lima as well. This has been functioning for about 4 years by now. And gifted education training was included also in regular teacher preparation programs. We could manage to prepare a model at the university about giftedness provisions along 2 years, either for elementary, secondary, and college students, and they took the model of secondary education in order to launch the Academy for Arts and Science. And everything is written down, is published in our scientific journal of psychology that happened to be that next week. We are celebrating our 30th anniversary of continuing publishing, and this man has a lot to do with that because he was the promoter or the first director, the second director, and now the third director. Okay, so for 30 years, he has been there because somebody had to give the idea of having scientific publishing at the university in order to have like a way to promote the sharing of what we were doing in Peru. So having all this done at the interdisciplinary research group, we are now working with 3 main factors, which are creativity, technology, and talent. These are the areas we're working through towards excellence in education, considering, of course, the context. We have done 3 studies by now. 1 has been finished, 2 are ongoing studies. 1 with the use of clickers, immediate response dispositive in psychologist formation. These are the clickers. I don't know if you have had experience with that. These are small technological dispositives of very easy manipulation that provides you the opportunity to have diverse types of questions presented, and students choose the answers from a number of given alternatives, and you have immediately the response here, you see? So this can generate, are immediately placed on a histogram and allows class discussion, debates, activities. This is not an electronic board, this is just like this, okay? Okay, that's a program that comes with the clickers. Okay, so but this generates debates, discussion, why a certain percentage answer this and that, etc. So following the literature, we have found that in the study where we wanted to explore students' perception in the use of these clickers, we have perceived the following benefits in class dynamics, but also some dead times. And students perceive the uses of debates, experiments, evaluation, etc. And we can tell that at least in undergrad formation in psychology, this was a very effective tool to introduce ICT to support students' learning process. We have an ongoing study with the Avatar group, which is the technology group. It's also an interdisciplinary group at our university, in which they prepare activities in virtual world and video games applied to school learning. Okay, and we have now developing a program in teaching history through these video games. And, well, this is already an ongoing study, but we hope to have the results for next ECHA conference, so we'll tell you there. And the third thing we're doing is a teacher training intervention experience using the ICT in the Northern Andes of Peru, following a semi-presential modality with a diploma on learning needs with teachers in Huaraz. We have to put it as learning needs because the Ministry of Education doesn't want just gifted education. So it has to be learning needs as a whole, okay, to be inclusive, remember. So using our platform, we have a more or less good platform at the university. We are going to Huaraz, which is in the Sierra, following the bus, okay, and there we are teaching the teachers of these students, okay, in a diploma style subject. And we have a number of learning strategies with presential learning each 15 days, permanent tutoring, presential and virtual, as well as self-instructed materials and media that is prepared in advance. And it is functioning pretty well, has a number of advantages related to semi-presential learning with the ICTs that has been already mentioned in terms of the elimination of the spatial barrier, flexibility and reduction of transportation, etc. Yeah, Liana is hiring me. And the advantages, we have these results, ongoing results. The active method proposal promotes self-learning and learning autonomy. We have a close monitoring of learning process, as well as a collaborative group and individual activities using the ICT. We have had a group, a virtual group with all the teachers that participate in this, and the participants themselves. Remember, participants are rural teachers in the Andes. Okay, that although they are not so far from Lima, because by bus it's not so many hours, it's about 12 hours, but it's 12 hours climbing mountains. It's not the same 12 hours in a single road. It's going up, 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 down, 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 following three mountains. And the third one is the rural school. Okay, so it's more or less like that. Yeah, many people here call that social responsibility, but there is just part of the job. So the participants develop skills to identify learning difficulties in their students, do collaborative work with psychologists and other professionals, and also develop the technological skills. The positive thing is that we do have Wi-Fi in rural areas, okay, via the satellite. So the teachers, although they are literally in the top of the hill or the mountain, they still have internet connection, okay? So for us, it's for utmost importance to improve our understanding about giftedness and talent development under ethno-linguistically diverse and poverty context, as well as to develop these formal lineaments for talent promotion with the policymakers, and to continue our networking with the Bell and Blanc Templeton Fellows, ECHA, IRAD. Also, we have a network with the Eisenhower Fellows and the World Council. This is the only way to really continue our work, to convince people to come to Peru and help us continue doing the job, as this guy is coming this December. She doesn't know yet all the work she has to do there. She told me 3 months. I'm trying to convince her for 6, but anyhow. And next July, we're preparing the semi-conference, the semi-conference that is going to be entitled Gifted Education in the Classroom and at Home. It's going to be since July the 14th until the 17th. It's a Monday to a Thursday, so all the people that are coming to Lima can go later to Cusco and Machu Picchu for the weekend. So that would be great. That was okay. So thank you very much for your attention and your time. Okay, good.
Are there any questions?
Yes.
Which language do you speak in the classroom?
Sorry?
Which language do you speak in the
Spanish. Spanish. At the university, we have English and Spanish classes. I mean, one of the requirements for students to enter university, 30% of the entrance exam, we have an entrance exam for the university, is English knowledge, but very basic to moderate level. At least they have to know how to read English in order to be, to read international literature. But usually in the classrooms, they speak Spanish. Now, if you're going to rural schools, then it's Quechua and Spanish. At that school that I was, they were mainly speaking Quechua more than Spanish. So I entered with a translator. Okay, and they thought I was a singer. So all the children were running. What is this? And they confused me, of course, and they wanted me to sing, and my singing abilities are not really my gift, So then they realized that I was not the singer, so they just sat down and were showing me what to do. But in that rural school, I met a girl, 8-year-older. She was a second grader doing some math job, and in the blackboard, her name was Sheyla, and she was so bright. And the teacher was asking me, what can we do with her? Because Sheyla went to school in the morning and then in the afternoon has to help in the farm. So how was going to be her life later? And it's interesting because, for instance, in the Andes, the way they teach science and technology is based on the Pachamama and the natural issues going on. You see, the natural processes. So if we go trying to assess science and technology as we know, they will fail. That's what happened. You see, we have to, and the other interesting thing is when I was in Ayacucho, when I was asking the questions in Spanish, for instance, about the water cycle, they were answering me as their teacher taught them at school. Okay, all the process on the water cycle, evaporation, etc. When the translator was asking them in Quechua, they were answering about the stories, ancient stories their grandparents were telling them about the water cycle. That was amazing, really. I didn't know if going with the sociologists and anthropologists that was coming with us in the group or continue doing my research as I was, started initially with the hypotheses, etc. But that was amazing, and that's something that is happening. It depends on how you ask the question, the answer they will tell you. And if you go further, 4 hours from the city of Huamanga, which is the capital city in Ayacucho, then the answers would be more similar to the Quechua spoken language than to the Western culture. So the water cycle will be disappearing, and the Cocha and the Pachamama and the different animism issues will appear. Yeah, and that is something very interesting that has not been studied yet. So maybe you would like to come and study. Yeah, really, it's very interesting. Very interesting. Yeah, you finish your ECHA training and then come to Peru. One more thing that maybe would be of interest for you. 2 weeks ago, yeah, I'll give you jobs as well. No, seriously talking. 2 weeks ago, because we have elections in 2016. So 2 weeks ago, very important commission from a province in the south went to Lima to talk to me. What do they want? And they told me, we want to build up a school for the gifted in this city, okay? I am accustomed to that, so I didn't say, oh, why? What do you want? Okay. I'm more suspicious, but still. And they told me, no, seriously, we want to build up a school for children, for the highly able children in Tacna, because most of them are going to Chile for university studies, and we want them to remain in Peru. So they are in the beginning. The mining companies that are there are going to support the project, and maybe in 1.5 years, there would be, how do you say, comunicado? How do you say, a call for gifted specialists going to Peru. Because they told me, oh, we have to hire somebody from Spain due to the language. I say, no, somebody from either the States or from Europe. They would learn Spanish. So, yeah, three months is all you need to learn Spanish. So, yeah, and I convinced them about that, because I would suggest more people having a training in gifted education to be in charge of that school. And that's a completely new project that has to deal with multiculturalism, and the people are really serious on doing that. Usually, the main restraint is money issues. Here, there are no money issues, because Peru is the second gold export in the world. The money is there, and the problem is that they don't know what to do with it. So she wants to go.
Before she's stealing all our specialists. Well, Sheyla has many talents, and talking speed is one of them. So thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
I gather there are no other questions, and if there are, we have a drink later, so
We can continue with the drink.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
and I have the present for you.
Yeah, the present. Very important.
There it
Yes,
is.
thank you.
And so
very
now
much.
we have 3 minutes to be in our seats in the other room, and
In
I
the other
should
room.
say we just go in, and if Tessa didn't finish yet, she knows she has to finish.
Thank you very much. Thank you.